Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and this is our Best 22 episode where we both reveal what we believe our best team is if everyone is fit. Now, if you're wondering why we aren't revealing our round one teams, because look, we all know we've got a fair few players injured right now, and you're probably asking, what's the point? Well, don't worry, because we will be revealing our best 22s for round one in our round one build-up show. So all of that will be covered. But in this episode, it's probably nice to see where the sort of hierarchy sits. And it's basically the best way we can kind of go through the whole list, chat about each player, see where they're all at. So at the end of the season, we can review it and I guess see how much things have changed. But one last thing before we get into this episode, Lockie, you are always hurling a few jabs my way. Little bit of abuse at times, I would say, particularly around my lack of plugs on this show. Often about me burying them into the 60-minute mark at the end of the show of the episode. So look, mate, I'm opening the floor to you. It's about you step up. You step up to the plate. Show me what you've got. No more complaining that it's me that forgets. I reckon it's time, mate. New year. Take some responsibility. I'm giving you the floor. Tell the people what you'd like them to know. Lockie, take it away.
Oh my goodness. I actually am not prepared for this. I was thinking we were going to do this in the next one, but that's okay. I can do this off the top of my head. I don't need to write down my things like you do. As the co-host, I can just do things off the dome. So what do we want the people to know? The most important thing, we've got some merch left. We posted some merch a couple of weeks ago, beautiful tees. About 80% of them went in with the click of a finger, but there's some lingerers and we haven't been promoting them. So jump onto what's the easiest way? Our Instagram or Twitter or Facebook to go onto the Navy Blue Corner Big Cartel.
Mate, if you go onto any of our socials, she will be there. You're clicking on that little link tree, it drops down, takes you to all of the places. It'll be in the show notes of this episode. If you're on YouTube, it'll be in the description. Hell, if I remember on my editing of this episode, it might flash across the screen as well. So don't you worry about the link to our Big Cartel, Navy Blue Corner Big Cartel. It will be there. If you're interested in some merch, I think we've got 3 or 4 larges left. Got a couple of double XLs. Grab them while they're hot because these things are not going to last too much longer. Lockie, what else would you love the people to know?
Thank you very much. What else you got to know? I mean, if you're not following us if you've got a Twitter account and you listen to us and you don't follow us, absolutely no idea what you're doing because during the season, Ian is firing off his hot takes live. You don't have to wait until a day after the game. Ingest them. Vent your frustrations with Ian throughout the game. I think that's a good one. I mean, round one is a week away, mate, and we're going to be at the game. If you're going to be at the game, let us know. Shoot us a message. Let's get a beer. Why not?
100%. No, mate, you've done all right there. Probably the only thing you haven't said.
What are we missing?
You got to give them a plug to what the socials is. It's at Navy Blue Corner on all of them, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Get on all the socials. If you're listening to this right now on your streaming service, chuck us a follow so you never miss an episode. If you're on YouTube, subscribe, get these numbers up. It helps us at the end of the day. But then it helps you because it's in your subscription box. You don't have to search, try and find it if we've released an episode. It's there. Get the notification, get all that fun stuff. But look, now that that's out of the way, Lockie can't yell at me anymore because I tell you, once this recording stops, I'm getting abuse. It's almost a little bit too much at times. But it's all in all seriousness. I'm happy that that's out of the way. Let's get straight into this episode. I feel like we've spoken for too many minutes without revealing our best 22s. And almost the hardest part of the best 22 is making sure you don't forget a player.
Oh, I've forgotten.
Because I know that it's what I'm nervous about, that I've forgotten someone like Walshy or someone like that and haven't got them in there. But let's go through this line by line. Lockie, I'd love to hear who the defenders are in your best 22. Everyone fit. Keep that in mind.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to be able to compare our little teams and see if we can have some disagreements for once. But there was a pretty clear 7 for me. So I've gone with Weeders and Young as the two taller guys, nailing down the key positions. Got to have Gov there, though.
Yep.
Our great interceptor when he's healthy. I mean, you've made some bold predictions about him when he gets healthy. So, and I actually got some ridicule about that from mates during the week, by the way. That was the hot take that stuck with people.
Really?
Non-Carlton fans, they're not high on McGovern, as we spoke about. So even more ammunition for Gov there. So we got Weeders, Young, and Gov, and then the smalls. I've got Sard, Newman, and Doherty.
Yep.
And I've still got Williams in this team, but he's on the bench. But I'm going to lump him in this group of the defenders. That's my 7.
Well, I'm good to hear all of the above. That we've got a disagreement. We've actually done something different to start this up. I've got very similar. I've definitely got Wiedering, Young, and McGovern as my talls. I've got Doc, Williams, and Sard in there, but no Nick Newman for me.
Wow.
Actually takes my last bench spot. So I know there's going to be some happy people to hear Marchie's on there. Maybe some Carlton besties will be very happy to hear that Caleb Marchbank is in my team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's discuss this. So finally, some differences. Why have you gone, I guess, Nick and Newman? Yeah. Talk me through your selection about this backline, because there's still, I guess, a few names that can kind of get thrown into this. Why is it Newman for you that takes that last spot?
Yeah, I think it's just about kind of the type of player. If I compare those two, Marchie and Newman, I mean, yeah, they're at the end of the day, they're playing a different kind of role. And I think when I think about that team with Weeders and Young, McGovern and Marchbank, also considering what my team looks like a little bit down the field, it's like I just worry that we're going to be a little bit too slow and just kind of a bit too much of a tall team. But I think some people would make an argument as well of not having McGovern in there and maybe having Marchie do that role. But for me, I think Newman, maybe he's one of the more underrated guys on our list, in fact, because he goes under the radar with what he does. But then you look back at the games he plays and he's like, well, he does his job bloody well.
Yeah. He's probably my most stiff to miss out. Like, number one snub for me is Nick Newman. I really like what he brings. It's hard, and it's a hard thing to get that balance right in that back line. We've spoken so much in the offseason. The club themselves have kind of spoken about that transition, particularly out of defense. And while I've probably gone a little bit tall there, I think if you've got Doherty, you've got Williams, you've got Sard that can kind of do a lot of that running. You can probably throw a couple of other guys around there if you really need it. But for me, I don't know. I think we saw that those last few games, how well it worked. We've almost struggled at times to get that real lockdown small defender and even that intercept defender. So I think having a guy like Gov, having a guy like Marchbank that can play tall, can play small, a little bit versatile, have the defensive qualities, but can also rebound for us. I just think it's really something special. Like, knowing Gov has that kind of quick pace and really good foot, really good disposal. I like him almost at times floating a bit half back and then allowing a guy like Marchbank to do his stuff. And at their best, I think it's hard to say to not start them really. And I think Newman slightly misses out, but I think for the balance, probably for the rest of my team, I feel that this is probably the best combination. But I'd love to also hear what the listeners think as well, who they've got as their back 6 or 7, because you can throw a lot out there. And probably my next question on that is, you obviously disagree with it for your everyone fit, but I guess what are your kind of thoughts around, like, do you think that we can play both Gov and Marchbank in the same team, or would you prefer a runner and just one of those two? What's your sort of feelings around the structure of that back line?
Yeah, well, it's sad to say that we may not be sport for choice this year at times with selections, but I definitely think it can work. I think this is the way that I've kind of looking at this team. It's like, who am I going to trust to be able to win a game of footy? Like, everyone's healthy. And I think when I think about the extremely small sample size last year where we saw, Marchie and Gov, it was like, I'm absolutely love Marchie. Nobody come for me. But with this sentence, I'm going to say, I'm not sold yet that he's going to be able to get back to what he was and what we expected him to be able to be before these injuries. Whereas Newman, it's like, I know what I'm going to get from him. So I think it can definitely work though. And I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful that it will work out. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think if you get the right combination around them, it'll work. And probably my one drawback on a Nick Newman is I think sometimes his disposal can let him down a little bit. And there's probably just a few better in his position that I think can dispose of the ball a little bit nicer out of that D50. And look, from what I've seen of Marchbank when he has been fit, and I know it's been so long, and that probably goes to your point, like it's a little bit on potential in a way, or hoping that he's going to give what he did a few years ago. But I just remember how calm I felt when he was down in that defense. And that's probably been something that's been missing over the years that he has been out. And speaking of transition, like I just want guys in that defense that I can trust. And never, when Caleb Marchbank is around the ball, do I worry, oh, he's not going to take this mark, he's going to make a bad decision, he's going to turn the ball over. He seems like pretty safe hands. So that's probably why I've just gone him over a guy like Nick Newman. But I mean, you've got another few guys that we'll chat about as we go through this who could potentially take that next step and be that extra runner. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out when a few more guys go into that. But I guess speaking of runners, one of them are injured. One of them is injured at the moment in Zach Williams, out for the year. So who for you at the moment, if everyone else is fit around that, who is that next kind of Zach Williams replacement for you taking out of this squad?
Yeah, well, I mean, it would be your man, the big 37, if he was healthy, because I think he, he's the most like for like in that role. But then, after that, it's a lame answer, but it would be Marchbank after that. I think the guys that I'd be looking at is, like Plowman would be around it as someone that can be reliable at times. Controversial opinion. And then, like for me, I'm not including Cowan in this team, even though we're excited by what we've seen. There's not enough for me yet to rely on the fact that he'd be able to deliver.
Yeah, I think for me, like straight into my team, it's obviously Nick Newman. It's a pretty easy one to bring straight in. Apart from that, it'll probably be Boyd, who's injured at the moment. It's going to be really interesting to see how his season plays out. We don't really know timeline-wise how long he's going to be out of the team. But once he does come back, because he doesn't have that head start, and maybe a guy like Cowan, guys like Newman really take on that spot, even a Chincotta, well and truly potential to play round one. Where does then Boyd sit in that crop? What level is he going to come back at? It's going to be really positive when he is back, because we just need the kind of player he is. Apart from those guys, it probably is Cowan for me if I need another runner, apart from those that I've just named. Which probably is a bit frustrating that we're already kind of relying on our depth and guys that haven't played an AFL game start of the season, which I know is conversations for that round one build-up episode. But fully healthy, we've got so many talented players, and it just goes back to that. We need our players fit and healthy, because our best is amazing, but we don't know a lot of that depth when you take 2 or 3 out of a position. I guess on that as well, talking about other roles and where this backline's going to go, who for you out of your team plays almost that lockdown small defender? It's something we talk about every single year. Who's playing on Papley? Who's playing on Charlie Cameron? Out of your team, do you have someone highlighted for that role if you would to give that role to someone?
Yeah, I guess it is really matchup specific. I mean, I think people underrate what Saad can do in that kind of role, depending on who the guy is. But I also don't think it's out of Newman's, I guess, bag to be able to do that either. But yeah, I mean, it's not as easy as when Plowman was the best V2 guy. It's like, well, we know what he's going to be doing. But maybe that also changes the way that we think about defending as well. And, maybe not necessarily doing that real lockdown, quote unquote, vibe, but just that our defense is in such harmony that they're all working well together. But what about you? Do you have a guy like that, pencil?
I feel like Marchbank and McGovern can kind of do a little bit of that, just because of the fact that they obviously aren't necessarily small, but they're pretty nimble for their size and can add a bit of physicality down there and almost try to play off them a little bit to intercept. But I kind of agree with you. I feel like we're almost past this guy's just in the team to be locked down, because like as you said, like we need to improve on team defense. It was a big thing when the Teague era ended, was like team defense. Let's sort this out, so we're not relying on playing a guy that's they're just in the team to lock down. And it reminds me a little bit of a conversation that a few of us had at the Collingwood practice game, which was even thinking about opposition teams. Like who are the best small lockdown defenders in the AFL? Like, do teams have them? Because, like, we could probably name like one or two that are decent at it for times, but a lot of the times when you're thinking about a backline, you're not going, oh, he's the lockdown that plays on Charlie Cameron this week. Like, it isn't something that gets spoken about a lot, which makes me almost evaluate the thinking around this in maybe we don't need that. Maybe it is a rotation. You mentioned Sard and his ability, like his closing speed in that back half is incredible, and putting a few guys around him that can body him, that can use their speed at times, hoping that the rest of the team and the structure just means the ball doesn't go to them, I think is probably the evolution of where we're going forward in these more modern games. I think hopefully that is the way about it.
Hope so.
Apart from that, I think the only other last question I have around the defense is injury-wise. Injury-wise, we know that, trying to rely on a few of these guys, a McGovern and a Marchbank, have had their injury issues. When they have played, that intercept defender has been such a big role in the way that we like to go about it. If both of those, touch wood, aren't available for 1 week, what are you doing? Are you going just the two talls, some smalls around them? Have you earmarked someone to come in straight as that? Third tall, I guess, if you're the coach, what are you doing match selection-wise if our two intercept defenders aren't there?
I hope everybody listening looked around their room just then and touched whatever wood they did have. Yeah, okay, good to go. Gosh, it's sad that we haven't mentioned Kemp in this section at all. Not that I'm sold that being a defender is his ultimate pathway into this team, but I guess he's like an obvious guy that comes to mind of someone that is versatile, could do some different things. Have we mentioned Sam Durden? I'm trying to make sure that we mention every name. I know you want to go through the names. Not that he's going to be an intercept guy, but it's like, you bring him in, maybe that unlocks Young, maybe Wiedering goes back to, some of those intercepting ways. God, we're going to have to get crafty if that's the case.
It's definitely not ideal that we don't really have that our sort of two intercept defenders are quite injury prone, but you'd probably hope that a Kemp, someone like that, is ready to go. Probably the disappointing part of preseason is that he's had a couple of injured niggles. We haven't necessarily seen a lot of him. I think you're right. He's probably the one earmarked for that role. And this is the difficult thing again. Like, are you going, that Durden in Young to be the interceptor? It doesn't fill you with a lot of confidence. I mean, there's definitely options. I don't know if any of them are amazing. And that's probably the difficult part. I'd hope that we could just throw Kemp in and have him as an interceptor, let him play a bit more of a free role, attack the ground and try to, penetrate offenses and push the ball forward down the field. But we just don't have anyone else. And you just got to fingers crossed one of those are fit, because when we played that interceptor, we were able to move the ball so much better. The ball wasn't coming in deep because we were stopping it earlier down that chain, and everything was better for it. I mean, that's going to be an interesting part of this season. We're going to have to watch and keep an eye on what happens with that third tall. How is it going to play out? Actually, I've got one last thing. I know we're talking about defenders for a while, but you know how high I am on big Caleb Marchbank, and probably been a bit of discourse in this preseason about Lewis Young and whether he is locked in to be that number two defender to a guy like Jacob Wiedering, who is so amazing. Do you think there's scope for a Marchbank to become the second main key defender, Gov become that intercept, and Young either sits out, or if there's an injury, Young then plays that intercept role that it seems like many of the doggies said he was almost preferred at? Or do you more just see it almost being that there's this intercept role to be available, or a lockdown small, and that's it for a guy like Caleb Marchbank?
It's a lame answer that I hate to give, but like, if I think team specific, like say we're rolling into round 2 against Geelong and we only have one of Wiedering or Young available, like would Marchbank be the guy that's going on the second, like to take Cameron? Like, does that give you, how confident would you feel about that? Would that be a big concern for you going into that game, or you think he would be able to do the job?
I'm not sure it's like a massive concern because I don't know. Weirdly, I don't think the level between both of those players, lockdown wise, playing on the big tall is a massive difference. I know Young showed a lot more recently. I probably wouldn't be super confident early into the season, but moving on, I think that's an area I'm interested to watch in because at Marchbank's best, he's been able to kind of do both and been okay as that second. And I wonder if being a bigger body, having a few more years in the system, even if he hasn't been out there playing AFL level, whether he has that room in his game to become that second, because I think it's kind of talking about my lack of faith at the moment in a Lewis Young being the long-term second key defender. I'm not super confident in him, which I think others may seriously disagree with me, think, no, Young's perfect, keep him in there. But if I'm going to like talk about weaknesses in this team, I'm not like convinced. Like if you told me we're getting Ben Mackay or whoever it is, I'm like, yes, let's go for someone else because I'm not 100% on him. Maybe let's hopefully manifest in something.
He's not injury prone.
Not at all. But yeah, I think that there's room for improvement in that defense in a multitude of areas. And if someone like him can step up and take that role where he has more elements to his game that I feel comfortable with, I'm not against it. But I think we're just going to have to maybe wait and see whether he can evolve into that. But I thought I'd just throw it out as an option. Yeah. Not that I'm sold on it now, but something that we can kind of watch for the rest of the season.
My fingers are crossed. I would love that. That would make me very happy.
So we'll go to almost a bit more of a layup before we go to the ruck discussion. Let's talk midfielders straight away.
A layup, Lockie, you say?
Well, I feel like it's closer to a layup than the ruck discussion at this stage. But give me your midfielders. I want to hear the wingers. I want to hear everyone involved in this and anyone you may have on the bench. Lay your team on me, Lockie.
Paddy Dow. No, I'm joking. Don't write that down.
I was ready to. If you had seen my paper, I already had CR written down. I had Cripps ready to go in that one.
Cripps is in your best 22?
Just made it in.
So I've gone with... We might actually have it different here. I've got Cripps, Hewitt, and Chera as my favourite centre bounce duo. Duo.
Three people, Lockie. You've done well. Great start. Yeah, I do have a different opinion on the three players in there.
Yikes! And I've got Kennedy on my bench as that rotation, and then the starting wings, I've got the big Blakers, and I've got Lob on the other wing. Brian, take that.
Look, I want to throw something out. Does Sam Walsh not make your team at all?
Sam Walsh is starting on my half forward line in that push up the ground roll.
Oh, we've got a spoiler ahead. Okay, well, I'll write him down just I wanted to make sure. I was very worried that you'd forgotten a Sam Walsh here, just because I will be mentioning him in my team there.
Go for it.
Yeah, so my midfield, very similar. We got Cripps in there, we got Hewitt, we got Walsh as my starters in there, Kennedy and Chera on the bench. My wingers, definitely Akers, lock him into that. And I don't have O'Brien. I've gone my man, Ollie Hollands, which most probably would have predicted. So we've got another disagreement. Let's go into this because the rest really pick themselves in this midfield. Why are you going O'Brien as your second winger? What do you love about him?
I almost feel... Tell me why you think he's the best player in the world. I almost feel like we can't have this discussion yet until I have your full team, because you said two of those blokes on your bench, right? So that means you've already used 3 of your bench spots, and I've only used 2. So, but I'll say, I mean, for me, if I had to put my money on it, I think by the end of this season, Ollie Hollands will be the locked on winger.
Yeah.
Just right now, if I'm talking, we're all healthy, let's go win round 1. Currently, I don't know. I'm not fully convinced on what we're going to get from Ollie round 1. That's why it's Lob, but Ollie's the man.
Yeah, look, long-time listeners to this know that I do like O'Brien. He's one of the best kicks we have. He's able to stay wide and give us something just purely because his disposal by foot is so good. He's one of the best players to get delivering the ball inside 50. There's still just question marks on where he's going. And I think it's that development issue. Last year we saw he was fine to be out there, had no issues at all, but I want to go past that. And I think the question for me at the moment, and it's hard because it's preseason and you don't know how much these guys are putting into it, but I was probably more impressed over the 2 games with Hollins compared to O'Brien. And I get what you're talking about. Like, you know what you're getting from an O'Brien. Hollins, you throw him in round 1 against the Tigers. What's that going to mean? Is he going to be one of these guys that come in first year and a little bit startled by the occasion? Like, what is he going to actually produce into the games? But as far as like, I think he's a decent kick. He might not be as good as O'Brien, but I do like what he does. And just his ability to cover the ground. I liked his positioning a little bit more. I liked his hunger in the tackle a little bit more. Absolutely. So it's almost like, for me, it's kind of like a 50-50. I have no issue with either of them, but I'm going the ceiling. I'm going someone who has that high potential out of the 2 because I'm kind of splitting hairs between them. And so with that, I'm going my boy Hollins over it. But it's the wings is going to be like the big debate. Like, round 1, what are we doing? Who's playing? Who's not? Are we having a third one in there? And a guy I want to throw out early into this, because he probably may have been in this discussion a lot if he was fit and ready to go. But a Matty Cottrell, who played that wing quite a lot last season, when he's fit again, where is he in your hierarchy, in your depth chart? Do you have him as a wing? Like, what are you looking at with a Matty Cottrell? Do you see him as someone that can really compete for that role? I'd love to get your thoughts.
Again, I would, if we were talking fully fit, round 1, like the team that I've got my life on the line for, I would still have Cottrell ahead of Hollins, just because, like you said, who knows how, like, was Hollins going at 200% and everyone else was going at 50? But I currently have, I believe I have Cottrell below Lob in my hierarchy as well. So I think by the end of the season, we'll be saying that it's Akers and Hollins are a step above the rest. Lob is then there, and then Cottrell, I'm not sure whether, I'm not sure where his place is going to be by the end of the year.
Yeah, he's such an interesting player. Last season was obviously his best year he's had for us. Showed a lot, and I probably, if it's just wing role, I probably have O'Brien over him as well. But I don't know. There's something about Cottrell and his ability that we saw at stages to play a bit high half forward and put it on the scoreboard. Like, he's a really good set shot. He's able to position himself well to get in those scoring opportunities that if we need extra run in a game, I don't mind him being that added bench spot. Like, if we've seen at times last year, we ran with almost like 3 wingers. We were having these hybrid kind of guys. Just his ability to play multiple positions, that at the moment it's like O'Brien's a winger or nothing. Hollins pretty much like a winger or nothing. I like the flexibility with the Cottrell. So I agree with you. I think O'Brien's probably above him. But if it comes to like a different section, or you want more versatility in that team, that's probably where I see Cottrell. It's just disappointing because there was so much talk in and around Carlton that he'd put on some size. He might be able to do a little bit more. And then he goes and gets the injury and he's out for who knows how long. And you just don't get to see the best out of him. Another question about a bit of fitness. We've also had some injuries to this with a Sam Walsh. And it's almost a 2-parter. I'll throw it all in the one, so answer it whichever one you want first. But who is your straight swap for Sam Walsh at the moment? And then, obviously, Doc is in our teams. Does he play a lot of midfield for you when Walsh is out? And then also when Walsh is in, what's your role for Doherty into this team? Love to get your thoughts.
Well, I don't know if you heard me before, but Walsh isn't in my midfield, actually, because Walsh is doing that beautiful role where he's like, look at me. Is Walsh playing forward this game? No, basically not. So, you know what? I'm not going to actually give my answer yet because it's going to give a spoiler for the rest. So
fair enough. Well, there you go. He's not answering my questions yet again. You heard it here first. This is what I
don't want to ruin the grand reveal, my grand sub. Because there you go. There's my answer. My sub is going to be coming in to replace Walsh. How's that?
Well, that's That's got the temperature in this room rising. I'm keen to hear that. I guess
Yeah.
I'll give my answer because Lockie's not giving me a lot here.
Go for it.
I think my replacement straight away is to focus on another position, really. If a Sam Walsh is straight out, whether that is bringing in, if Cottrell was fit, he probably would have been my player, that half forward kind of guy. But it's probably at the moment, like maybe a guy like an Ed Kerno that can play that defensive half forward role, cover the ground, play wing if you need him, play midfield, and kind of do a bit of everything. I want versatility for my replacement of Walsh. Because we saw last year, you've got enough midfielders that can play that with the rotations of Fisher in there. And then, I think Doc does rotate in whether Walsh is injured or not. I think his percentage goes down when Walsh is in that team. But what Doc can do at times, those last few games, his ability to move that ball forward, get the chains rolling when you needed a clearance and you just needed the territory. I'm hoping like those wet games that we struggle to deal with the conditions, when it starts to get wet, when the rain starts pouring down, it's, hey, Doc, come in, get that ball forward for us. It's a great lever to pull at certain stages. So, Doc's in there at times regardless. And, it's a versatility player like an Ed Kerno, I think, that comes into that midfield. Apart from that, who else do you want floating through that midfield? I named a guy like a Zach Fisher. Is there anyone else in that team? Guys, and you don't have to give away anything. You can just name players, whether this is best 22 or not, that if they were selected in this team, I'll give you that caveat. If this player was selected in the team, you'd like them to have some midfield minutes around stoppages, center bounces, that kind of thing.
It's an interesting question because it raises the question. I feel like there's some teams at the moment, or people are talking about teams going towards the midfield by committee, like more different guys running through the midfield. Whereas when I look at our names and I look at those guys, and it's like Hewitt, Cripps, Kennedy, and Chera, like them as like the key four, plus Doc as 5 for round 1. It's like it feels right to me to just kind of roll with them. I don't know how like Fisher's an obvious one. Who I don't know what the results are like when he's in there. I need some data because I feel like I always see when I see him going in there, I'm like, oh, here we go. And then we get a clearance on us. So I'm like, I don't know, is he actually good in there or not? Maybe that's a question for Pommy and his stats. So I'm interested to hear your answer because at the moment I'm kind of like, well, if Hewitt and Kennedy aren't in there, then that means they're on the bench or they're playing somewhere else, which I'd rather than be in their best spot. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely, I'm looking at those outside kind of players. Fisher, I really do like in there. I mean, Martin got floated a few times, but for whatever reason, they don't really like him. And I think with his calf and injuries, I'm like, stay away, stay in that forward line and kick some goals. Probably the only other two that I'd probably float is, and it's hard to talk about hypotheticals with this guy, injured again, but like a David Cunningham is like the perfect player for that pinch hit, play that high half forward role, and be with Cunningham, you don't know what he could have done and what he can potentially do. There's a chance that he becomes a midfielder. Like we have zero idea what it could happen to him, whether he's just a half forward, whether he grows into that, whether he just never plays again. Like there's so many different avenues that this guy's career could go down, but if he was fit, if he was ready to go, he'd be that high half forward. Give him a couple of center bounces. And unfortunately, maybe that spot, and I don't know if we'll see it this year, but maybe going forward, it sounds like, a Motlop may get a couple of those. Just you need a spark in there, throw him around it and see what happens, bring something a little bit different. Because I think one thing we still probably miss in that midfield, and maybe the wingers fix this, but it was just having pace and that ability to expand from the contest. We did really well with those forward handballs early in the season. That seemed to dry up and we lost probably that best clearance kind of work from us at stages. So I think there's pace that we lack, and maybe a Fisher is that guy. But yeah, I just wonder who those players that can rotate through, because last year it seemed like we kept just going the same guys, but you look at other teams and they're sprinkling this guy for a few and a few others. So I just wonder who the people in this team are that we can just, if we need to change anything, if something's not working, we can just, hey, go in for one and see what happens. That's kind of something that excites me going into this year.
Yeah, I like the Motlop shout in that kind of conversation. The Cunningham thing is just way like if I'm not going to be if getting Hollands in my best 22 is hypothetical, then oh my god, would you go over or under 6 games from Cunningham this season?
If I'm putting money on it, I'm going the unders. Just off history, I'm hoping over, but I don't know. Like, who knows how long he's out for? They haven't really put much of a timeline on him, and you don't know if he's best 22 what he comes back. Like, I don't know. Like, he's probably unders for me. Is that what he is for you?
Yeah, I hate to be pessimistic on it, but I mean, yeah, even like that's why I'm saying it's so hypothetical. Like, even if he is, if he was fully fit, I don't know where I have him on this depth chart.
Yeah, it's kind of like a bit of the Marchbank debate. You're like, I don't know what this guy can do. At least we saw Marchbank last season, so you have something. But Cunners, it's like, when was the last time this dude played? What is he still? No idea. Another realm, another position. I think this is going to be the spiciest section of this best 22 debate, which we may. I mean, normally we're the same person, so I'm hoping there's a bit more disagreement in this. Let's go to the rucks. It's the biggest talking point of Carlton at the moment. Who is playing ruck? How many rucks do we have? How is it all playing out? Lockie, is Hudson O'Keefe and Murkov your 2 starting ruckmen? Who have you got for me?
I think we'll disagree on this one. I think we will. 2 ruckmen. Give me Pitt starting and give me TDK on my interchange.
There we go. Yes, definitely disagreement. TDK has not made my team.
He's going to make $1 million next year.
Have fun. Make it 8. Make it 8 over 8 seasons. No, unfortunately, he's another snub for me. DeConing hasn't made it. And
evil.
I'm happy to have this discussion. It's the best time to have it. It's something I've wanted to really dive into in this off season. Look, I think who is so Pitternet is your number 1 at the moment. Is that what you're going with? Those?
No doubt, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We love Brad.
So for me, he's the number 1 as well, just because I think he's a better ruckman in general, like just tap work. And it sounded like in the Summer Sessions podcast, I don't know if there's much to read into this, but he mentioned that when he got back into training and things, the midfielders were like, oh, I miss having you here just because of all the blocks and the competitiveness around helping the midfield. That wasn't a little bit of an alarm bell for me, just thinking like, oh, is it that much of a difference? And maybe I'm reading into it too much, but is it that much of a difference when Pitt's in there compared to a DeConing or others just because of the physicality around there that helps our clearance work, being able to put those blocks on, get someone else out of position to let the midfield win the ball? I think Pitternet does that really well, but he's not perfect. Like, by no means am I saying that Pitternet is going to be the number 1 ruckman all season. I'm still not convinced on him completely because he doesn't offer enough around the ground. Like, he's not that Max Gawn that floats in the back line and takes those marks to move you forward. You can't play him in the forward line. He's very much just like a ruck. That's it. Yep. So for me, that's the interesting part around DeConing, which I'll throw to you. I'd love to know what your sort of basis is on these 2. Let me know where they're playing. How are you going to play with the 2 rucks? Give me the explanation.
I think for me, I haven't worked on this pitch, so this could be rusty. So be kind to me, people, because I know people will be passionate about this topic. But I think it's less about who TDK is as a player and more for what this structure is for our team and what it means for everybody else. So firstly, let's forget about the practice games.
Yeah.
Nobody judge who TDK is on those 2 games because that's not what we do for practice games. Let's remember what he delivered last year where we were pretty high on him. We weren't $1 million a year high on him, but we were pretty high on him. How many games did Pitt and TDK play together in 2022, Ian?
No idea, mate.
The bus for a second.
I'd say like 5.
Correct.
Maybe
5 is correct.
King.
One of those games was when Pitt got injured.
Yeah.
Let's forget about that. 4 games. 3 of them were the first 3 games of the season. We were premiers.
Well,
The fourth one was the Adelaide game, which is the game that no one will ever speak about, and everything went wrong that day. So in those first three games, it was obviously Pitt, TDK, and Sauce. We were liking what we were seeing then. So I think the sample size is firstly too small for us to write off that combination, because all year we were like, oh, can they work together? It was like, well, we just haven't really got a chance to see them yet. And then I think for me, Sauce is a guy that people are like starting to get a little bit like, oh, I don't know actually what Sauce's role is going to be. But I think in this structure, he can play that getting up the ground, connecting forward that we love to see, which means that we're going to have less of these situations where we look forward and we go, fuck, there is nobody to kick it to. Because if Sauce is that connector, then that means Harry and Charlie are going to be there. Didn't really say anything about TDK as a player. And honestly, right now, for me, it isn't really about him as a player yet. That's my pitch.
Yeah. Look,
any feedback?
Wow. Well, I got to say, bringing the evidence of every time they've played together, bar one that we discount, and they all win, is great evidence to bring to the table. I think my worries are just around fitting them in with the tall forward and trying to be like, well, what are we doing with both of them? And I'm trying to do this as like a best 22 because so many players are missing out if everyone's fit, trying to fit them all in. So what are we doing with the two ruckmen? And is it worthwhile to have two people doing the job or one person doing the job? That's kind of where I'm seeing it. And it's like, okay, you got Pitt in there. He's rucking. Can't float in defense, be that wall down there. He's not resting down forward. So he's definitely, if he's in the team, he's your ruckman. De Koning, what's going on with him? Okay, if Pitt's not playing, he's just rucking. We've both said that Pitt's over him. We've both come up with that conclusion right now. Okay, so you've got to play both of them together if fit. What are you doing with De Koning? Is he playing that kind of defensive wall at times? I don't mind that. I think that's one of his strengths. We've seen he's flying for marks down back. I do enjoy that. But then at times when Pittinet's there, he's going to have to be resting forward. Can he, do you really realistically see a world where it's De Koning and Harry down in that forward line? Do you think that works with the three-headed monster again?
I like the little smile you gave on that one. I mean, you're saying this as if we don't have an interchange. And I'm not also suggesting that we're only ever going to have one of them on the field. But I think it might also be good player management for these two guys that love getting injured to say, hey, we're going to focus on you guys not having ridiculous game time. But that's a bit of a cop-out thing to say because obviously they're going to have to be on the ground sometimes. I like your comments on TDK there. Can Pitt go forward? Look, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. But also, I don't think either of these things are perfect. Playing with just one of them and having Sauce go in the ruck, and then that is not perfect. And I don't think my suggestion is either.
Yeah, I think my sort of argument on it is I don't think De Koning's a good forward. I've seen no evidence currently that his work in that forward 50 is AFL standard. And that's probably really brutal to say. But it's like, and I feel like I'm becoming
occasional mark.
I feel like I'm becoming such a TDK hater, but it's like he's not a great ruckman so far. He doesn't offer a lot of physicality around the ground. He doesn't offer anything up forward. He can't kick set shot goals. All he does so far is a highlight reel screamer every now and then. Like, I'm not seeing enough in him currently. Not to say that he can't do it. And we've obviously seen glimpses of him being a really good player. It's why we're still high on him. It's why you probably want to play the two ruckmen because you're like, well, you've got to get games into him. That's a way he's going to improve and maybe can take over that number one role because stealing over Pittinet, it's higher. And you go with that like I have with the Hollands. My issue around playing both of them at the moment is what is one of them doing when the other one's in the ruck? And like you sort of alluded to, you can't just have them one on the bench the whole time. And I don't think the three talls work amazingly, even if one's off. Like, I don't want either of them really down in the forward line. And it goes back to it's like opportunity cost. What are you losing by playing two guys to do the one role? Because when you've got Sauce there, I agree. I prefer Sauce being that high half forward connector. But at least when he's not in the ruck, he's a forward and we like what he does. I just feel like we're losing a position because neither of these two ruckmen, we love them just being the solo ruck. It's like two people playing one position and we're just missing out somewhere else where, I guess kind of what I'm talking about with my structure is, well, I've gone the taller Marchbank down there so I can have another runner elsewhere. Or you go bringing in someone else somewhere else. And I just worry that because neither ruckman we love, playing two for the sake of it isn't the greatest thing for us to do. And if TDK is not out of contract, we're probably not having this discussion as much because we're now kind of worried, like, well, we've got to play this guy, otherwise he's going to walk and what.
It's underlying,
I don't know. Right now, I just see it as a kind of, and maybe I will get proven wrong and the system will work amazingly with the two ruckmen and it'll be beautiful because of your sample size. And I'm more than happy to be wrong here because it means we're winning games and all the players that we like are playing good footy. But I think my main point, so I can shut up and stop repeating it, is just it feels weird to play two guys to play one position when they're neither are offering anything else elsewhere, and you're not. It's the opportunity cost, really, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so would you say that this is true then? Let's say that Pick continues on his trajectory being like just an excellent tap ruckman guy.
Yeah,
and TDK also takes a leap in the tap ruck department. Suddenly we've got two of the best tap ruckmen in the league, but TDK is still not able to kick goals. You'd still say no TDK in that route.
You're probably saying like whichever one's better plays the ruck. Because I think for me, if they're both amazing ruckmen, then you play the better ruckman. If neither can offer anything else elsewhere, then why like it's this Gone Grundy conundrum that the AFL world doesn't know if it works. And maybe we're all idiots and that works, and so therefore you're a genius and we play the two ruckmen. I just currently don't see it unless another role that these guys can do takes a step that I haven't seen, or there's a really smart structural component to this that we just haven't seen yet. I think is kind of where I'm seeing it. One curveball I'll throw into this, because I know Big Mark Lydiard himself asked this question on Twitter, and I know a few others have been chatting about it.
He?
We speak about defenders. We speak about what can other players do. Obviously, Big Tom's brother plays that key defender, intercept defender. If there's some injuries and we need someone to go down there, do you see that being an opportunity for him to play like just defender, forward, and ruck at times to add versatility? Or do you just not see him as being a guy that can play that position?
Well, firstly, didn't know we were doing listener Q&A. Didn't realize Marcos had got that in there because he mentioned it to me a week or so ago. And I was going to bring it up, actually. I didn't want to throw him under the bus in case he didn't want that hot take out there. But I'm glad that he did. I mean, if we went through this season hardly playing TDK and not trying anything like that, and then he walked, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
So there's no point, there's no harm in giving that a crack, I would say. And he's got the attributes to be able to pull off something like that. But I wouldn't bank on him being able to deliver.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that if you're chucking that scenario out, it's like, well, if they're not even trialing it in VFL, what are we doing here? This is ridiculous. If the guy can't get into the team, figure it out for him. Obviously, we've touched on that marking capability and things he's done deep in defense at times to just be like, holy shit, we need a mark. We need something. He's bobbed up for us and done the job. I don't know. I don't know if he has the other attributes. Like, how good is his reading of the play? Does he have the defensive side? Is his disposal great? But, I mean, we've spoken about it. We can't trust Marchbank. We can't trust McGovern. We want that third interceptor.
Yeah.
That makes me a bit more, I guess, okay with having the two ruckmen if there's another position that he can nail down at times that helps the structure of this team. So maybe that's the solution, seeing that if he can bob up and be a target down forward. He can float down back if we need him. Who knows? I mean, I'd love to get everyone's thoughts on that because I don't really have a true answer.
It's a good topic.
To whether De Koning can play defense and whether that's something you want to see. So let us know in the comments on YouTube. Tweet at us if you're listening on podcast form at the moment at Navy Blue Corner, of course, because I want to know. I don't know what to do with TDK. I don't know what to do with these two rucks. Do people have De Koning over him? Give me all of your thoughts on this. I'm not necessarily nailed down, even though it feels like I very much am. I think that's just where I sit currently. And I guess we'll see how this season plays out. Probably the only other thing, and I've spoken about rucks for ages, we've talked about his contract, De Koning. Did you read much into, I guess, the signing of a Hudson O'Keefe? Do you feel like there's anything around De Koning, or does this spell something else for the development of Murkov? Did you have any tinfoil hat readings into this at all?
Oh, I really don't. I try so hard not to buy into any of these sources that go into these kind of Sydney's, we're going to throw this amount of money. Even though I believe that a team would take a chance on him, even if he doesn't show a lot this year. No, I don't have any tinfoil. I don't even feel that passionately about it because, like I said, I prefer the kind of structural way that we're lining up like that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if he doesn't take that step this year, then it's just going to be like another Stocker where it's like we kind of loved him all the way, and then we get to the end and we look back and we go, what was his best game?
Yeah. That's unfortunately, like, I don't want to keep shitting on De Koning, but that's probably like it at the moment where there's been flashes.
All Australian now.
Oh yeah, and I hope he does. Like, but like that Freo game was probably the one last year at Marvel where he showed so much throughout a whole game. And I get it, he's young, he's a ruckman, they take time to develop. Yes. That might just be it at the moment. And this year he takes a step forward, whether it's next year, who knows. But yeah, I don't know. The signing of Hudson O'Keefe was an interesting one because I think both of us, we did so much list analysis and trade and draft preview. And we don't need another developing ruckman. I'm not too nervous about the De Koning situation in bringing him in. Weirdly, if I'm tinfoiling hat on anything, it's Murkov maybe in trouble. I probably should have researched. I don't know if he's out of contract this year or next. But judging that we've had this developing guy for a few years, really at the moment, is he any closer to being an AFL footballer than he was when we got him? By inches, by centimeters, maybe. I don't know. He's a big boy, doesn't do a lot. For me, it's spelling more disaster for him that we're not getting enough out of this developing ruckman. Let's bring in another. And I get it, it's a free hit. It doesn't matter too much, but I don't see Murkov being close to getting an AFL call-up this year unless the worst thing happens and there's literally no one else left over 5'10", really. And that's probably why they brought in another ruckman there. But, I mean, this whole ruck narrative is probably going to be like the big talking point throughout this whole season this year. And I hope it is, regardless of what the answer is, that it's a positive one for us.
Bloody oath, mate. Well summarised.
Well, there you go. That's what I'm here for.
Good little segment.
Good to see a bit of positivity. Let's go to the forwards now. The last line that we have here, Lockie, what do you got? Who's made the team? Who hasn't made the cut? Because there's still some spots available.
There are. And we'll see who I've managed to forget off my list here. We've got Harry. We've got Charlie. Can't go past Jesse. Nor Dirds. Sauce is in there, of course. And then the man that wraps up this sexy six is, of course, Sam Walsh. But on the bench, Zach Fisher makes up the seventh.
Beautiful. So I know there's one snub already, which is someone I have in my team. So we'll bring them out. Obviously got the big boys in Mackay and Charlie Curnow. Fisher's there. Durden's there. Motlop's there. Silvani's on my bench as my ruck relief forward. Mr. Do whatever you need us to do. But then I do have on my starting field someone that you have snubbed, and that is Mr. I have no calves. Jackie Martin is out there into that team. So take me through your snub, I suppose, and then maybe I'll try and defend my man.
You say he's a snub. I say he's the sub.
There you go. Oh, there, mate. There's a bit of
You like
rhyming
that?
stuff for you. Take over.
I mean, go off. Yeah, I mean, doesn't Jack Martin just have like the best like tactical sub ever written all over him? Like you just imagine him coming in the fourth quarter, everybody's tired. All right, go kick 3 goals, tackle everybody, maybe get injured with a few minutes left. Like
That's my worry. That's why I'm not sure it's the best sub, because it's like, okay, we've got whether you use it tactically or you use it for an injured player, you can't guarantee that he doesn't also pop a calf 10 minutes into his
running
impact
out
onto the field, and you're like, oh, there goes another one. So I'm not sure he is the best sub for that, for reliability. But as far as a guy that you can swing on to say, mate, impact the game and kick 3 goals, you know he can do it. So I don't mind him being your sub. But no, he's in for me. And I think we've spoken heavily about the need for someone else to kick goals in this team that is not named Charlie or named Harry. And I don't know who that is. Like, we need a Durden or Motlop to step up. We need Fisher to take another step in development, whether that's he becomes that goal kicker, whether he becomes a bit more of that midfield option. Needs to do that. Martin at the moment, and I've spoken about my frustrations with this guy. I keep writing him off, and then he comes back and kicks 3 goals in a game, and then he gets injured, and it's just a roller coaster. That is Jack Martin. But as far as someone currently that we know can kick goals in this team, that can mark the ball, be that third call option in a way that maybe isn't a Silvani, I think it's him. His best is best 22. And I think that's why I've got him there, because I need someone that can kick goals in this forward line. And it's so annoying, because if you are a small forward in the AFL, it's almost the best team to walk into, because you've got 2 amazing tall forwards that can bring the ball down for you. You don't have to be a ridiculously good goal kicker, because the pressure's not on you to do it. And yeah, so I think I've got Martin on there because I need someone to kick goals. That is really what I've done. And with TDK not in the team, I've gone for an extra small, really, is kind of the way I've looked at it.
I think that is fair enough, and I hear your arguments. If I'm thinking about who we've just not got in this team altogether, and I think about Newman and Martin, personally, I would have Newman ahead of him just as a general player.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to get around Martin's best, because it's just, how many times have we seen that best in, has it been 3 seasons now? It's God, you count it on one hand.
I know, and the annoying thing is, and you bring up like one game, like you'll be like, oh, the Melbourne game last year, they almost won it for us out of nothing. And that's it. Whether he's fit or not, he has that match-winning ability, but at least he's done it recently, I think, for me. I need goal kickers in my forward line, and currently Durden isn't there, Motlop isn't there. He's probably closer, but then like Silvani gets his chances, doesn't take him. Fisher kicks some important goals, but he's not prolific. He's the most prolific small forward that we have that can do something. And I don't love it. I'm not convinced that he is that guy. And that probably is it. Now I'll throw this one over to you. Like, who is that third leading goal kicker behind Mackay and Curnow? Because it's the big talking point. We need someone to take that step. Who is it for you in your team?
I mean, I don't have faith that this is going to happen, but I think it has to be Sauce.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be kicking less than a goal a game in the role that he's playing. Simple as that. Like, and that's one of the big things that makes me question what his role could be at the end of this season. Because if we do another season like the last few, where, like you say, it's just Harry and Charlie relying on them, it's like, what are we doing? Something's got to change. And I don't think that the Martin is the future of that. So if it's neither of them, then I mean, I hope it can be Motlop. I mean, we made these in our hot take predictions, but like, for me, he can bring more to the table than, this is what we talked about all last year. They bring more to the table than just the goals. But it's like, sometimes if Sauce isn't doing those other things, that's like, what are we doing? Why are you in here?
No, and it is the fun part of this because if I was to bring in De Koning and play that second ruck, Martin would be probably the first one out of that, and I would probably play Silvani.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I've got him on my starting field over Sauce, but yeah, that's probably the change I would make. Apart from this, let's go even smaller. I'll throw a couple of other random questions at you while we're talking about the smalls. Yep. Do you reckon we can play in the same forward line the combination of an Owies with Durden and Motlop at any stage, or are you not super hot on the real three smalls that we saw a little bit last year?
I'm going to hot take and say that we don't see that combination this season. Yeah, I think they'll, unless it's dire straits injury wise. Yeah. I think we're more likely to see Honey in the team than Owies. If it's Durden and Motlop plus one. Yeah. What about you?
I agree. I think if you're looking at that kind of makeup, you need one of those three to play higher up the ground and be that connector, which is probably either Durden or Motlop. I don't see Owies as that kind of guy. But then you're losing the strength that that person has over an Owies. So I agree. I don't love the combination. I would much rather someone that can do something else. So yeah, I guess is that next person Honey for you? Like if you're taking, and I'll ask this from my perspective because it was obviously the question came up with my team thinking. If you're looking at the forward line with a Martin in it and you're taking his high half forward role out, who comes next in for you to play that mid forward kind of role?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's why
Cunningham say all fit.
Who is it? I don't want to it feels bad to say. I don't want to overrate what Cunningham is going to be able to be.
Yeah.
It's been so long that I can't even say that who he is as a player. So I can't say him. It's such a hard question because it's another area that worries me, I guess. And it's like, where is that development going to be if, I've said, let's say Sauce falls off the face of the earth this season for whatever reason, and we're not going to be best 22 next year, then that's a big hole for me because I don't think it's Martin long term. I'm not convinced on him, and I'm not convinced on anyone else that's not in the team. So maybe that's a gap we need to fill. And I think it's a gap that you and I have spoken about the last few pre-seasons where it's like, where's that more mature aged goal kicker?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I've wrote a few notes down here in case we got to these conversations, and it was, well, one, we need the mid to small goal kicker, and maybe that's Motlop. Maybe he goes through it and kicks enough this season, or they all just contribute enough, kicking a few goals a game that it's fine. I think we need Silvani to become like Bailey Fritsch light in a way. Doesn't need to hit those heights, but and maybe that's Martin. We need one of these guys to be that third marking, presenting option that is able to hit the scoreboard consistently. That is a gap in this squad because as much as Mackay and Kerno are going to kick all the goals, you need someone else to help be another option. If they start doing it and taking another defender away, being that other option, means someone else is going to continue kicking goals around that. And being someone that can pinch hit higher, I know this is such a stupid thing to say, but we miss currently in this squad that I think a lot of the best teams in the AFL have at the moment is that high half forward goal kicker, rest forward, kicks goals, match winning kicks goals, but can also go in the midfield and win you the game. You know, your Jordan De Goey's, your Dustin Martin, those kind of players. Obviously, they don't grow on trees. Obviously, not every single team in the AFL has them, but I think the best have that match winner player. It's what we hoped Martin could be. Don't think he's going to be that. Can Fisher step up a little bit? I don't know. I want someone to play a lesser role of those players that I kind of mentioned that are the peak of the AFL. And I do think that is something we still kind of miss in that forward line.
And I don't know if there's potential in that in the guys that aren't in the team right now.
Yeah.
Either, really.
I think Cunningham was like the ideal, if you're looking at prototype just on paper, what that is, it's Cunningham. Plays a game, he gets 25 possessions in, dominates the midfield, has kicked goals in the past. But what can we get? And not having him fit, not having Martin fit, Sauce not being able to hit the scoreboard. Yeah, it throws another list hole in it. It's probably why. And I've been thinking about this a little bit. And I don't want to be this. I feel like this episode's so negative from coming from me.
I'm getting there now. I'm like, ugh.
But I don't know. I was trying to think about it. And I think the Sydney game hasn't helped my thinking. But when you mentioned like your prediction kind of thing was like, yeah, we're winning the flag, that kind of thing. These little holes that I'm looking at my best 22s, trying to compare us to other teams, it has me thinking that like this is why we're just not there. It's why I think we're a finals team because there's enough around it. But I need these other players to show me something and step up, take that step this year. And then I'll be convinced that this group can actually win the flag because I think there's still too many question marks around players at the moment. Sorry to make that so depressing. That was not fun. No. I didn't enjoy that.
No, I was, as we were going through that, I was like sliding down as well. So bring us up. What have you got? What's next? And I'm going to open it. Yeah, it's getting dark in here, isn't it? You keep talking while I vanish.
Yeah, I was like, well, speaking of positivity, I'll brighten the room up firstly. I think the darkness has not helped my mood. And the only last question I have on our forward line is an interesting player that I touched on a little bit. I'll throw Ed Curno's name out there. We haven't seen him play really at all last year. We've sort of moved past him in that midfield. A little bit has been seen of him in this high half forward kind of role. I mentioned it as a versatility option. Do you see him as being someone that could play that defensive half forward role for us? I think we've struggled defensive, with teams' defensive transition out of our forward line and being able to lock down and quell the impact of an opposition's halfback. It seems like they always torch us up. Is that something you want to see, I think, at all? And is that something you could see Ed Curnow playing as?
Yep. He is my round one sub choice.
Yep.
For me.
I like that.
I think, everything you said, just then I agree with. I'm not sold of what we're going to get from him for the full season, but gee, it was nice seeing him in the Pracky game. And it's like, oh yeah, maybe we did write him off a bit too soon. So yeah, why not? I can't. Well, I guess maybe the question back to you, which is what comes to mind. Like, yeah, there's the half forward thing, but would you expect him to go to the middle?
That's a weird thing, and it's a position that, or probably a role instead makes more sense. That I am fine with him playing that, but it probably goes down to that opportunity cost that is my buzzword for this episode, which is, well, he's not offering enough in the goal sense that a Jack Martin, that a Silvani, that everyone else you could name, even a Honey, could offer. So it's like, well, you're playing him as a defensive role, which is kind of saying that you're conceding that you're going to lose a matchup. Yeah, I think it's a lever to pull at times if you need it to happen, but I don't like that being this is our number one option to use to win everyone fit, and that's why he's not in my best 22, and he's sort of a few rungs down for me. But it's something I wanted to discuss. Last thing I'll discuss on my team as a whole before we start talking about the depth, because I wanted to leave this to the end, because if you're still listening, you're rusted on and you want to hear us talk about some of the guys that won't probably make our best 22. But I wanted to mention my sub because you got yours in there. I want to mention mine. My best 22 sub. I've done that thing again. You're not going to like this. You're not going to like this. I've done that. I've made a couple of fences. I'm making a few properties.
Are you serious?
But settle in, mate. Buckle up. If we knew what Cunningham would be, he's my perfect sub. He is the quintessential sub. Can play him half forward, can play him in the midfield. He can move around and do everything. He's perfect for the role. But
I have to cut you off.
No.
You said,
let me finish.
Jack Martin is too injury prone as the sub.
I don't think Cunningham gets injured in game apart from that ACL. It's everything else. He just never is out there. But he rarely gets injured in the game with a bad one. But what I'm saying is, if you know he's going to be perfect, he's the perfect sub, but he's not because he's injured all the time. We don't know what we can expect. So it is Matty Cottrell for me, being the versatility option on the wing. He can move someone else elsewhere, play half forward, add some run. You need it to be a running player that just almost adds chaos into the game. And when I'm thinking there's 10 minutes left to go, you need someone to win you a game. For whatever reason, I feel as if you throw Cottrell in, you're winning that game of football because he's just going to do something nuts. He's going to be involved. And flashbacks to that Sydney game in lockdown where he flies above it, kicks the match-winning goal, does the Giannis celebration. I feel like he's a good sub. Bit of versatility for you. But yeah, you can have a go at me, yell at me all you want for the throwing the Cunningham on my second fence, on my, development rental property, I suppose.
My biggest takeaway from this is I think maybe he's going to have to be your man this year, and I'm going to have to be laying into you because I think you need to put some respect on Nick Newman. The fact that you've got Cottrell ahead of Newman in this team. I understand the versatility factor. Factor. I'm just saying. I hope Nick Newman's going to have a big year, and I'm ready for it.
I don't mind Nick Newman, and I
hope he's listening.
He is. It must be a regular listener. I feel like I'm stuttering too much here, but Nick Newman as a sub, I look at that on paper. A back pocket doesn't sound exciting as a sub.
No, that doesn't excite me either. No.
But I don't mind your thinking where if you were to, with this best 22, bring in a Nick Newman, that means Doherty's going in full-time mid.
Sure.
Williams or Sard becomes that midfielder. That's not a bad thing to do if you were looking to change something up to try and use this tactically, which I don't mind as an option. But yeah, I think when I think of sub in my head, it's like forward half or midfielder coming into this. Defender just doesn't make me feel happy. But I think, Nick Newman is definitely my next in defender if there's any issues.
What about this hypothetical? Hollins and Doherty, or Doherty and Newman? So Doherty wing, Newman back. You would have Hollins on the wing. Doherty
I think I would. Just because I think the role we've seen Doherty on the wing and he gets drawn to the contest too much because that's his bread and butter. The way we want to play and spread, even though personnel wise, you'd take Newman and Doherty over that, like personnel wise, but structurally, I think that Hollins works better on the wing. But nice hypothetical. Let's wrap this one up by going into these depth players, the fringe players, because we will reflect on this at the end of the year, talk about our best 22 going into the list analysis and where this list does sit. So we've got to talk about these guys, and I want to know if you think they're going to take that step up or where you see them in your hierarchy. Let's start with the defenders, a guy we haven't spoken about. Where is Lockie Plowman for you in the depth chart? And where is his season going?
Well, when I was thinking about who would come in for the injured guys, so like let's take Williams out of the backman thing.
Yeah.
He was kind of around the conversation for me. He's around it. We're going to see Lockie Plowman play this year. I don't even think there's much to say on him because it's like we know he's never going to be a superstar, but we know that he'll do a job and he'll do one or two things that everyone will laugh at. Yeah, and that's what we get.
No, this is where we're back on the agreement train to finish this episode.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, if he plays, it's fine. You don't want him to because you have others above him. But as a depth option, if there's injuries, he's fine. Boyd, we've said where he is in our depth chart. He's kind of that next man in for the running half backs. Where is he when he comes back from his injury? Would he be someone over, say... And I'm talking so hypothetical because I don't know what your round one team looks like. But if you've got like a Chincotta, a Cowan, Plowman, those kind of guys, Marchbank all around your 22, does Boyd jump a few of those if he comes back?
I think he probably, in this kind of structure, for me, he probably jumps all of them.
Yeah.
Marchbank was the one when you threw in that I'm like, ooh. It would be between those two, but I would definitely have him above Cowan at this stage. The sky's the limit for Cowan in the future, but right now with what we saw from Boyd last year, those last couple of games, it's like, ooh, okay, there's something here.
I agree. I think unless Cowan takes that massive step and plays at the standard we saw of Boyd, Boyd's straight back in as soon as we see it. Chin Cotter, do you see him being I just want to talk. I want to talk about all of these guys, even if it's for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Chin Cotter, where is he at the moment for you? Is he below
It's
Cowan?
It's hard for me to get a read because I don't know if there's something about him. It's hard for me to get a read on him. I like the fact that he's a more mature body, but I would still have to put him below Cowan for me.
Yeah.
But I understand the argument for people that go, you know what, he's a more mature guy. If we have to throw someone in there, put him in over Cowan early.
I agree. And I don't think I need to say anything else on that because that is my
complete
opinion.
Aligned.
Sam Durden.
I mean, Sam Durden.
He's a player on the list. That is 100% true. He plays for Carlton.
If Weeders and Young don't miss a game, then we won't see Sam Durden, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really tussling.
Yeah. He's a depth play. Do you see any scope for him to take over Lewis Young's role or no?
No. I'm going to say no. Even though it's possible because the sample size is still not huge on Young. It's been one season, but I don't think so.
I don't see the ceiling either. I think he's a good experienced body to throw in if we have an injury. Next two are going to be interesting. We've said a bit about him, but Brody Kemp, I mean, go through where he's sitting for you and where you want him to be end of season as well. Get a bit of positivity in there.
Yeah, okay. Where I want him to be end of season is I want them in the VFL to actually experiment and give him a decent run in different spots.
Yeah.
So that we can have a little bit more of a definition about what we can expect from him. Because it's similar to TDK. I would hate for us to lose him, say, at the end of the season or something. And it's like, oh, well, what about this big bodied mid? Or why couldn't we try him whatever exposition? Yeah. That's as much optimism I can give you.
Yeah, I probably slightly disagree to that. I agree in your principal point of I'd hate for him to get to the end of the season and we get rid of him because we didn't try him somewhere else. But where I differ is he's been thrown around so much. He was training as a back and then he was training as a forward and then he's a back. I feel like because of his injuries, because he's been thrown around, he hasn't had that consistency to learn. I want him first at least half of this season, throw him in there as a defender, be that third tall intercept, potentially be a halfback because he's had stints in the midfield in his underage. Be that guy. And then if he's not breaking in, if that isn't working, I don't know. It's been said by multiple people throughout, just what can he do in the midfield? I just want to see something like we didn't see with Stocker at VFL level. Give him one game and be like, is he that player? Is he not? Cool, he's not. Throw it away. Like we're not losing anything by in one game in the VFL against bloody Port Melbourne saying, is this guy a midfielder or not at the level? If you don't think he's at training, just do it at VFL. What are we losing? He doesn't play next week or next year. I don't know. I want to trial him in that if the defensive role isn't working.
It sounded like we disagreed there, but we didn't. We completely agreed because that's what I was alluding to. I was like,
yeah, okay.
I'm not sold on the defensive thing at all. Like, let's get him some run in the midfield, and then at least tick that off and say no, but not a one game sample size for me. Like, actually give him a proper go, and then we can go from there.
Okay, next man, big Dom. Where is he for you? What do you want to see from him? He's obviously one that is a bit more of that development kind of guy. We're not expecting him to play any AFL games, but where do you want to see him at the end of this season? Do you want to see him pushing for selection? Like, I want to get your gauge for some of these more developing players.
Well, I guess the cop-out answer to that is I want to see every player pushing for selection and everyone kind of around it. Like that seems like a cop-out thing to say, but I mean, Pom's man. It's a shame I haven't seen enough and don't know enough about him to know whether he's kind of even has the scope to be pushing for a spot this year. Like seeing him at VFL, it's just such a different standard. You see Paddy Dow at VFL and you go, how is this guy not getting the game? I mean, again, like doing over under, do you think we see him over under 2 games this year?
Unders, I don't see him getting close to it.
You don't think he'll debut this year?
No. I'd hope not, because it means everyone else is fit. But I mean, development-wise for him, it's probably like we've spoken a bit about Murkov, we've spoken a bit about Kemp, where it's like, well, what are they? Where are they? And that's the question we're asking of Dom now. I want to get to this time next season and we have a bit more idea of what he could become, where we've seen enough at VFL where it's, okay, this guy can become this, or he's not doing... I don't want to sit here this time next year and look at him again and go, where is he in his development? And maybe that's asking too much. Maybe he's just not there yet. But I want to know what kind of player he is and what his ceiling is. I'm just sick of us having a lot of these players in this depth chart where we start talking about the lower ends and we're still asking so many questions and there's no like positive. It's no, oh, well, man, him as an intercept defender, him rolling off is unreal, just needs to tidy up these few things and he could be pushing. Like, I just want, this is what he is. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of wanting from a lot of these lower depth options. I want a clearer outlook, really.
I love that. I think that's a really, that's an outcome that we hopefully will have. I'm with you.
Yeah. I feel like we don't really need, like, Murkov. What do you need from him? Same thing?
I guess it's the same thing. Yeah. What kind of player is Murkov? Is he a small forward? Is he a halfback? I'm just not sure yet.
No idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
For me, this is harsh. I'm going to go big on Murkov. I need him by the end of this season to be showing me that, like, he's pushing for selection.
Okay.
If he's at the same spot next year, what's the point? Like,
okay.
What are we just developing him another year and hoping that he's going to improve? Like, I need to see a lot of improvement from him, because Hudson O'Keefe is that other one that he gets a free hit this year. But then what? Are we going to have two developing? We need to know by the end of next season whether Murkov is going to be someone or whether he's not, and then just figure it out. That's my discussion. Ed Curnow, where does he... We've chatted a bit, but is he someone that you want bouncing around this team? What is he for you?
I think he'll be around it, and I think I'm pretty confident that it will be his last season. So I'm hoping that. I mean, firstly, obviously, he's getting a flag. That's something he's always deserved.
Of course,
that's good.
Of course.
But again, I don't want it to be a situation where we're playing him just for the sake of it. But which I don't think is the culture that we have right now either. I don't think they'll do that. I think he's earned the right to be at least around it though, and I think he'll play some games.
Yeah, depth play option if needed. Experience in that VFL, teaching the kids. Yeah, Paddy Dow.
That's the hardest one.
It's another season asking what do we do with Paddy Dow. Lockie, I'll throw it to you, mate. I need you under the bus for this one.
I want you to give me the games over under for this one. What would you set it at?
I've already written him off. I've delisted Paddy Dow. I'll be honest.
Wow.
If he plays a game,
forget throwing under the bus.
I don't know. If he plays a game, good on him. I don't see him taking the step. I see him as a fine depth option if we need him. I no longer see a ceiling or an opportunity for him. He allows Jack Carroll to not be thrown in if we're desperately hit with injuries.
Wow. Yeah. I'm glad I asked.
Is he anything better for you?
No.
Sorry to be
no.
Yeah.
Is everything all right over there, man?
No, it's really bad.
I'm actually not excited for this season now. Now that we're 7 days away, the stress is getting to us.
I think so. So let's talk about another positive one. Jack Carroll, where's he for you?
I'm more excited about him. I mean, he had some nice moments in the limited sample size. So, yeah, I mean, he's got to show improvement. I mean, he should be someone. He should be someone like Dow, who's like he should be a best on VFL guy.
Yes,
he should become a guy that it's like you're too good for this, mate. But I think it'll be the opportunity for him to do that at VFL level will be there, because I don't think there will be a whole lot of AFL unless everybody.
Yes,
I'm not going to even put an injury into the universe.
Why do that? But yeah, I agree. Like my negative hat that is sitting in this room currently, clearly on top of my head,
Debbie Downer,
is that I don't know if Jack Carroll will do it. But what I want
Yeah.
from him is everything you said. Play the VFL, be one of the best on. Tell me what you are. Are you big, tall inside mid? Are you mid half
Yeah.
forward? I want to learn a bit more from him. And yeah, he needs to be that guy that is, man, this guy's too good for VFL. Next year or even later into this season, he starts to come in because those little games that he started last season, like the North Melbourne, he showed something and he just sort of slowly tapered off. But he's a youngster that's kind of what you expect. So this year's almost his like, you get that chance in the VFL to just put 10, 15 games together and have that second half of that season as like, oh, this guy could be something. I think that's what I want from a Jack Carroll.
Agreed.
Next guy is Jackson Binns. Do you have, obviously you probably haven't seen a lot of him, but do you have an expectation on what you're kind of hoping to get out of this guy for his first season?
I mean, I don't like setting high expectations much at all for draftees. So I think you'll be better placed. Do you think he'll play a game?
I don't think he will. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I always saw him as a guy that'll take a few years to develop. Really good runner. Kicking lets him down a little bit. Lighter frame. He was always very below a Hollands' standard. But I mean, in saying that, in the NAB League final, he was probably one of his team's best out there playing that wing. And so, having Hollands and having a few players like a Cottrell, like an O'Brien over him in that role, I love that we can kind of just throw him in the VFL and be like, just take your time, mate. Take your time and develop and show us what you got. Whether he evolves into that half forward, that'll be interesting to see, but no expectations on him. Matty Owies is probably a bit more closer. How far is he off your best 22? And what's his ceiling? Is probably my depressing question to ask.
I'm kind of worried about you, man. I feel like we need to get you up and about somehow.
Get a welfare check on me.
The ceiling. That's such a hard question for a small forward, I feel. Yeah. I think he's. I definitely would have Motlop and Durden well over him for the ceiling. But he's probably, if we're being completely realistic, he's probably not that much behind Motlop this second. Yeah. Like maybe that's a bit overstated because everyone's so high on Motlop, but we're high on him for good reason. And we're not playing all three.
Yeah. Output at the moment, definitely close to level with those guys. Tackle pressure is something he brings in spades, but you're just playing the others over it because of that. The youth and the ceiling. I like him as a guy that we can throw in if there's an injury. I have no issues with Matty Owies being named in a lineup because Durden's got that calf injury come round one. Not fussed at all. But I want these other players to... It's almost like a weird positivity spin. It's not for Matty Owies at all, but I want the other guys to really take that step. Like even a Honey, like I want others to just take a step and go past him so we are a better team. Because unfortunately, I don't see that ceiling with an Owies, which just means we're a better team if all these other guys come next season. It's not even like a question of, this guy maybe comes in. It's like, no, these guys are that much better than him. And unfortunately, that's just the role I think he needs to play. My man, Joshy Honey, what?
Oh, he's your man.
Where is he? Where is he for you?
It's so tricky as well. Like, it's so hard to see like a premiership starting half forward ceiling. I don't. It's not there. And again, like I feel like I can't remember if we spoke about this on the pod or spoke about it off air, but it's like I don't think the club is every player that we get. The expectation is that you have to be a premiership starting caliber player. Like some of these guys, then they weren't high selections. We took players at the selections that we got, and we see what we have, and not everyone's going to hit. And that's not a sad story that not every player is going to hit. And I don't think at the end of the day we'll reflect back and think that Honey did hit.
I think he's probably really got this year to show his signs whether he can really do it. He's shown it a little bit. I was so high on him when he first broke into the team, and then last season he definitely took that step down, and I don't probably have a lot of high expectations for him this year. If he comes in, I hope he hits the ground running, but I agree. I think the ceiling is definitely lowered on him quite heavily. And if someone else comes in next year as a draftee over him, so be it. But if he takes that step, that's beautiful. And yeah, he's definitely down that depth chart at the moment. Lemmy, he's another very much raw.
Harry.
You just develop in the twos and take your time. Last one that we'll end on, it probably sums up my mood, but it's Big Fogarty. Yeah, what is he? What is he at the moment for you, Lockie? Do you have a position that he is for you in the depth chart? As in, not position number-wise, but where the hell does this man play on the ground for you?
Firstly, I'm glad you missed a player. I knew one of us would, and you missed one. Fogarty, I would have him below Dow in terms of potential of them breaking into the team, I would say, like long term. I don't see where the upside is. Yeah. But we got him for nothing. He played some good games. A couple.
Yeah, he is like the experienced help the VFL. Take that big body away from a Jack Carroll. That's all I want him to do this year. And yeah, that's fine for me. Who have I missed, Lockie? Because this is worrying for me.
Well, one of us will have egg on their face because maybe you did mention him. Sam Phil?
Oh, well, I didn't. And I think my main reason was I don't think he'll ever play a game again, whether that's even at VFL. My negativity on him is that I've almost just unfortunately written him off as, you're no longer a Carlton player because unfortunately, when you're that injured, I don't see him being close to best 22. I don't see the upside. He's been in the system for a few years. I just don't see him there next year. So unfortunately for Philpy, he's completely moved out of my consciousness at even being at the football club, which is kind of sad. It's been a very depressing episode on my front, but let me put some positivity. Okay, here we go.
Let me put some positivity. Remember who you wrote off 2 years ago? You remember who you said, delist him?
Matt Kennedy.
So just look at that.
Is this your hot take? Where was this hot take in the bloody season preview? Philpy becomes number 4 midfielder for the Carlton Football Club.
That's all I'll say. There's the positivity. Anyone can turn it around.
Anyone can. And I hope some of these depth players do. And I'm happy to put my hand up and have as much egg on my face because if some of these players turn it around, it means we're a better team. And that's why I'm never going to get it right because who the hell am I? But that's a part of the fun in these. It's the part of fun in these best 22s because you've written off Marchbank, you've written off Hollands, you've written off Martin, whereas I've written off Newman, O'Brien, TDK. We have our fun with it. But look, those are our best 22s. We'll have them
show us yours
up on social medias for you guys to do it in the comments. Tweet at us who is your everyone fit best 22. And in a lot of these discussions, when we've talked about position, we've spoken about some of these depth plays. Do you have any smokies that you think are going to take that step up and take over some of these roles going into the end of the season? Because while it's been a bit of a depressing end, which I will admit it has been, there is so much positivity in the actual starting team and a few of the...
Oh, you betcha.
Is it Pitternet? Is it TDK? Who's playing that wing role? Who's playing the high half forward? Who's the defender? There are genuine questions, and that's the exciting part for me. And I can't wait to do our round one build-up where we get to really talk a little bit more about who's fit right now, who's going to start that season, and how are we structuring our sides because of that. Because that's really the fun part. But I thought this was a really good experiment to kind of go through each player on the list. I knew it'd be a long one, but it makes it easier to reflect at the end of the year where we go, okay, I've delisted X player and now they're a bloody superstar and I get to come back and look like an idiot. And Lockie gets to come here and tell me I'm an idiot. So that's always the fun part.
I'm never wrong.
But, exactly. Never in his life. And that's the fun part. But yes, that is this episode. As I said, there will be that round one build up to come before the season kicks off. And then it goes into the match reviews, the fun part of this season. We're no longer talking about will Cunningham be this player. We get to deal with raw data. And look.
And we love raw data. There's nothing more fun than raw. Mate, I don't know.
We love spreadsheets here at the Navy Blue Corner, and we love putting it in and getting results. The unknowns, the probability is not something that we enjoy here. We like absolutes. But the one thing
wins on the board
because we're so deep into this, I'll bury this in. This one's not important. This one's not important. You don't have to get angry. I gave you your chance at the start of this episode, so shut up.
Yeah, take the reins.
I'm saying that there is currently, as we are talking, a VFL game getting played with some of, I think Mitch McGovern's in there. There's a few AFL listed players in there. So if anyone has taken a step up and maybe Jack Carroll's got 40 disposals and 4 goals and everyone's going, what are you talking about? Jack Carroll's no good. He's a superstar. That's the evidence that we don't have. We don't have that raw data with us at the moment. But that's something I'm excited to then talk about in our round 1 build-up. Who's pushing for selection? That's the perfect segue into that one. But that will wrap up this episode, our best 22 at Navy Blue Corner on the socials. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff that Lockie told you to do. And you know what he told you to do? Told you to buy one of those T-shirts, because guess what? You sell them out, you don't get me yelling at you, talking about it every single week. That is going to finish this episode. We'll be back for our round 1 build-up next week. Round 1 around the corner. See you guys next time.